Hey, happy Monday. Hey, thanks for being with me here today. Thanks for taking a few minutes on Monday to be here with me live. And if you're watching the replay later, thanks for coming back and watching later. What I like to do on Monday morning is I like to give you a little boost of motivation because I think that a good start to the day is, or a good start to the week rather, is really important. A good start to the day is important too. There's a reason why a morning routine is so powerful is because it starts you off on the right foot. It starts you off with high energy. It starts you off, with real focus. And so that's what I like to do on Monday mornings. I like to give you a little bit of motivation. Hopefully that will give you some inspiration to move forward and to really attack the day and attack the week. And hopefully that inspiration and that action taking will lead to transformation. That's my ultimate goal. So thank you for being here. I've been thinking a lot about focus this week. And, I talk a lot about focus in my videos and with my coaching clients and everything. But I really wanted to kind of break it down a little bit more today because I think there's some misconceptions about focus, and there's some things that I really want to just get clear and make sure that you understand how powerful just your focus, just your perspective is. It can change everything. When you decide what you're going to focus on today, that changes your whole day, right? Every day you have a choice. You have a choice what you're going to focus on. But the problem is that most people are going to allow their circumstances or their environment or their relationships or whatever, everything that's happening to them, they're going to allow that to control their focus, right? But when something goes wrong, that's what they focus on. And sometimes it's to the expense at the expense, easy for me to say, at the expense of everything else. They're only focusing on that one thing, and it makes it difficult to be able to really shift, because if all your focus is on one area, that's where all of your energy goes, right? Tony Robbins says where focus goes, energy flows. And that can be a superpower, or it can lead you down a really dark path. So the thing is, in reality, our focus is only limited to our own mind. That's the only limit. So basically, it's limitless, right? All human behavior it's controlled by basically two impulses. So the desire to avoid pain or the desire to gain pleasure. That's built into our psychology. There's no escaping it. But here's the thing, we can actually use that to our advantage when we become aware of it, and we can use our focus to be able to either go avoid pain or move toward pleasure. What we focus on is going to either cause pain or it's going to cause pleasure. That's all there is to it. And here's the thing, it does it in the present, but it also does it in the future. If we learn to actually, if we learn to project our pain or pleasure into the future, then we can actually focus on that and learn to actually create this pull power instead of trying to just use our willpower to push through everything. We can create this compelling future. We can create a pull power that actually gets us to where we want to go quicker and with a lot less pain and a lot more pleasure. So I'm going to give you an example of focus. This week, I have a beautiful example for you. This week, I was teaching my daughter how to ride her bicycle without training wheels. And, think back to the last time that you were a kid learning how to ride a bike, or maybe you were teaching your kids to ride a bike, right? What's the most important thing when you're learning that skill? It's focus, right? As I'm helping her, I'm running along beside her. I've got her bicycle and I'm holding her up as I go. But I kept telling her, look forward, look where you want to go. Look toward where you're focusing, focus on where you actually want to go, right? And when she looked straight ahead, when she focused on where she wanted to go, she did great. It was like smooth sailing, right? But the minute she looked down or the minute she looked at the curb, she would lose her balance and she'd crash. And don't worry, she didn't get hurt or anything. I think she had a scraped knee or something, but she was totally fine. But how often do we focus on what we're afraid of instead of what we want? And I think the bicycle metaphor is so perfect because there was two things that I was noticing as she was learning to ride. The first thing was, like I said, if she's looking at the curb, she's focusing on what she's afraid of, and she would just automatically go toward the curb. Which at one point she ran into a mailbox. Like I said, it was pretty slow. It was like slow motion. She was totally fine, but she was looking at where she didn't want to go, and so that's where she ended up going, right? The thing about focus is we actually tend to get more of what we focus on. So if you focus on fear, you're going to be more afraid. If you focus on being overwhelmed, you're going to get overwhelmed. But it works the other way too. If you focus on joy or laughter or happiness, you tend to get more of it. That's just how it works. So she's focusing on the thing she's afraid of and she's steering toward it, right? But then there's another thing that she kept focusing on as well. Every once in a while, she would look down at her bike while she's riding. And as soon as she started to look down at her bike, she would lose her focus and she'd start to get shaky, or she'd go down. So there's two things here. She's looking at what she's afraid of, but she's also looking at how she's gonna accomplish her goals, right? How many times do we do that, right? We have these goals in mind, and we have, maybe we have these really big, my coach used to call it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? We have these big plans, we have these big goals, and so often we get so caught up in how am I going to accomplish this. So we look down at the how instead of focusing on the why, instead of focusing on the goal itself, instead of focusing on that pull power, on the thing that's going to bring us toward it, and focusing on what we actually want. We're focusing on, okay, how is this actually going to work? So we really got to stay laser focused on our goal and where we're actually moving. That's what's going to keep us from crashing. And here's the thing. Are we guaranteed success if we focus on one thing? No. But if we focus on the fear, we're guaranteed to get more fear. We're guaranteed, failure, if you want to call it that. How many of us spend more time focusing on what we don't have than what we do have, right? That's one of the biggest things is people will spend so much time focusing on what they didn't get or what they should have got, what life owed them or whatever. And a lot of times we don't think of it consciously that way. It doesn't actually formulate that exact thought in our mind. We don't actually say, life owes me, but that's kind of how we act, right? That's how we show up is I'm focusing on all the stuff that I don't have. So why isn't it working? Right. And here's the thing. People are going to tell you, what do you have to be happy about anyway? Right. Look at everything that's going wrong. Maybe you got friends or family member, or maybe you tell yourself that, or maybe your colleagues tell you that, whatever it is. But focus controls your destiny. That's all there is to it. Tony Robbins says that what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. So if you're focusing on what you do have instead of focusing on what you don't have, then a lot of times you'll be able to see things that you didn't see before. There are three internal myths, I like to call them, that we tell ourselves about focus. And again, a lot of it's subconscious, but when you start to learn that you're telling yourself this, then the awareness of it can help you start to make a shift. So the first myth is that focus is fixed. Basically, it means that, a lot of people believe it's constant. We can't do anything about it. It's just whatever happens, that's going to control our focus. But in reality, focus, it can be redirected. We can take control. We can be intentional. And with practice, we can start to do that automatically. It's just like steering a ship. You have the power to choose your direction. Myth number two is focus on the problems solves the problems, right? A lot of people, they'll just focusing so much on the problem. But here's the thing. It's like I said, it's so easy to really zero in on what's wrong, but focusing just on problems, a a lot of times it makes it worse instead of making it better, right? Instead, shift your focus to solutions and opportunities. Is there something I'm missing in this situation? Instead of focusing so much on the problem, focus on how do I is there a door that I didn't see, or maybe I have to go through this situation in order to get to the other side. Maybe there's something that I'm not seeing on the other side that will actually help me through this, or will help me get stronger. So this changes our perspective. It transforms challenges into stepping stones, and I think that's one of the most powerful shifts you can ever make. Is instead of looking at obstacles as these things that are holding you back, think of them as something that will make you stronger. And then myth number 3 is focus is only for the present. I touched on this a little bit, but this limits our potential. It will limit the way that we can actually see the world. So immediate focus on the moment, it's essential. It's totally important, but true mastery of focus is about aligning your focus with your future goals. And how do you learn how to avoid pain and gain pleasure, right? How do you do that with your focus? And you can't. It's all about what you focus on, right? You live the life that you focus on. If you're thinking about all the things that go wrong, or you're thinking about being angry, or you're thinking about being depressed, that's what you're living. But if you're thinking about being happy, that's what you're living. You live the life that you focus on. The long-term vision when it comes to focus, it helps to propel you forward. It helps to pull you forward. Like I said, Tony Robbins says, where energy goes, or where focus goes, energy flows. So what I want to ask you is, what if you changed your focus? Just for a second, what's the worst that could happen if you shifted from faith to fear, or from uncertainty to courage? What do you think could change for you? Just for a second, if you did it just for a minute, how do you think your life could be different? Will the circumstances go away automatically or immediately? No, probably not. But the way you show up drastically changes when you change what you focus on. Here's the thing. It's time to start controlling your focus. You have that choice. How are you going to use that? Thanks for being here on a Monday. Thanks for watching. If you're watching the replay, I would love for you to join me I'm having a live virtual event on August 7th called The Realtor's Edge. If you're ready to stop letting all of your circumstances and all of the things around you control you, if you're ready to take control of your own focus and turn your storms into your breakthroughs, or turn your mess into your message, as I like to say, join me for the free workshop. There's a link in my bio. Please share, and subscribe. And thank you again for being here on a Monday. Happy Monday. Go out there and crush it. And I will see you next week.